Hot news witness testifies he, El Chapos' wife and sons helped coordinate kingpins last prison esca. Damaso Lopez, 52, wearing a navy blue prison uniform, testified Wednesday against Guzman, who he once oversaw as a prison official but eventually went to work for. Lopez was not. Guzman dramatically escaped from prison in 2015, riding on a motorcycle through a tunnel that had been dug to his cell at the Altiplano Maximum Security Federal Prison. Lopez testified that he had met with Guzman's 4 sons multiple times to coordinate the digging of a tunnel, the purchase of land near the prison and the renting of the warehouse where Guzman was taken before being flown to a hideout in his home state of Sinaloa. Lopez said that Guzman's wife, Emma Coronel, would bring messages from Guzman to the group after visiting him in prison, requesting them to complete tasks for the escape. Coronel sat in federal court in Brooklyn as Lopez testified against his former boss. She has not been charged. Jeffrey Lichtman, Guzman's attorney, said, "I am." Guzman, 61, has pleaded not guilty. If convicted of it, the inmate becomes the boss. Damaso Lopez was a high-ranking Mexican prison official when he first met Guzman in 1999 at Puente Grande, a maximum security prison. The pair, Lopez was the deputy director of security and custody when he met Guzman and was responsible for internal security for the prison. Guzman, he. In exchange, Lopez testified, he received help, too. Guzman alleged, when Lopez resigned from his post in 2000 after the prison was being investigated for corruption. In 2001, Lopez said he was not involved in that escape, which brought Guzman more than a decade of freedom. Lopez testified he stayed in touch with Guzman, turning to him when he struggled to find a job after resigning from his post at the prison. Over the next 15 years, Lopez would work for Guzman, who he called me. And when Lopez first took the stand Tuesday, he tapped his hand to his chest as he gazed over at Guzman. Guzman's attorney, The pair became close after Guzman's 2001 escape from prison. Lopez started to work for Guzman by helping acquire properties for him, he said. He became God. Lopez testified that Guzman ordered multiple executions of cartel associates, some of which were not carried out. Lopez would then on February 22, 2014, Lopez's birthday, after more than a decade on the run, Guzman was arrested and taken to a prison at the Altiplano Federal Penitentiary. Plans for the escape. Guzman and Lopez continued to stay in touch while Guzman was back in prison. Lopez testified by the end of March of that year. Lopez said he met with Guzman's wife, Coronel, in her home state of Sinaloa, where she relayed a message from Guzman in prison he was. Lopez said he then met with Guzman's 4 sons Joaquin Jr., Alfredo, Ivan, and Ovidio in July 2014 to discuss planning the escape and testified that Coronel would relay messages to the group from Guzman in prison. Guzman wanted the group to buy him weapons and an armored pickup truck, as well as rent a warehouse near the prison and buy a piece of land nearby. To determine exactly where the tunnel should lead, Lopez said he and Guzman's sons decided to get a watch that could let them know the exact GPS coordinates of Guzman's prison cell. The group met again. Guzman wanted to know what progress it had made. Lopez testified that he was not involved with the digging of the tunnel and that Guzman's sons were handling it. New details of his escape. At one point, Lopez said Guzman's sons mentioned to him that Guzman was hearing the final arrest. Guzman was arrested, again, in January 2016, after a raid by Mexican authorities in which 5 Guzman associates were killed. He was taken to it. After the arrest, Lopez said that Coronel sought him out for a meeting, where she told him her husband sent his regards and that Lopez said that he and Coronel were she. Lopez testified that he told Coronel he would help but that he didn't have any money. Lopez testified that another Guzman associate delivered $100,000 to him to help and that he was told he would be given more money, depending on the cost of the land. But Guzman was eventually extradited to the United States in early 2017. Lopez was arrested a few months later, in May, in Mexico City and was extradited to the U.S. in 2018. He pleaded guilty. Lopez's family is in the United States for Guzman's sons Alfredo and Ivan are under federal indictment on drug-related charges, and the U.S. Treasury Department has sanctioned Ivan and Ovidio under the U.S. Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act for involvement in drug trafficking activities. CNN was
Raindrop, truck top, smoking, no cooking, the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.